All right, everybody. Hey, we're back for part 3 of the African History Network show. So once again, share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Beginning of the show, when I did the rundown, I talked about this story from Bloomberg and Channel 4 out of the UK. Trump's 2016 campaign targeted 3.5 million black people to deter them from voting. And I just talked about this briefly, and I just realized, hey, I didn't go into this like I wanted to. So this is very, very important. All right. So share this broadcast once again. All right. So Bloomberg in the US, Bloomberg.com broke this story. The first article I saw about this was, I think, from Bloomberg. And this deals with the rampant voter suppression that was taking place during the 2016 campaign. Bloomberg's article, Trump labeled black voters deterrents in 2016, TV report says. And also Roland Martin talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we're going to go to that clip here in just a minute. And let's see if we can... All right, they will let us pin this. Okay, I guess that's how we do it. Okay, Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign reportedly sought to deter millions of African Americans from voting by targeting them with misleading advertisements on Facebook, according to an investigation broadcast Monday by Channel 4 News in London. So this article came out September 28th, 2020. Okay. And HuffingtonPost.com has reporting on this. Also Bloomberg. Okay, Bloomberg.com. The investigation revealed that Donald Trump's 2016 digital team used data to separate voters into 8 different audiences. And target them with tailored advertisements. About 3.5 million African American voters were categorized as quote unquote deterrents, or voters who were not likely to vote for Trump and could potentially be deterred from voting at all. So this was the game, to not to make your case why African Americans should vote for you, but to target 3.5 million African Americans and classify them as deterrents and target them with advertisements to discourage them from voting. I warned our people about this. People didn't want to listen. I warned you about Trump. Everything I said about Trump turned out to be true. I just thought Republicans in the Senate had more integrity and would have removed his ass from office. All the stuff I said about Trump turned out to be true. And I warned our people in 2016. This campaign take place in real time. How's everybody doing? I saw the disinformation campaign take place in real time in 2016. And there's a disinformation campaign taking place right now. But we should be smarter and not fall for this nonsense once again. Okay. All right. Let me try to pull this up from Bloomberg. Trump labeled black voters deterrents in 2016. TV report says. Let me try this up from Bloomberg. I want to see if I can show you this article. Okay, so Channel 4 alleged that the Trump campaign attempted to dissuade black voters from backing Democrat Hillary Clinton by targeting them with advertisements that misstated her record on racial issues. And they did this. This is true. The Trump campaign dismissed the Channel 4 story. Quote, "This is fake news," end quote. Oftentimes that means it's true, just so you know. Said Communications Director Tim Murtaugh. President Trump has built a relationship of trust with African-American voters. Candace Owens, Kanye West, Herman Cain. Oh, I'm sorry, Herman. Sorry, Herman. Herman Cain. The Trump campaign dismissed the Channel 4 story. This is fake news, said Communications Director Tim Murtaugh. The news comes as Facebook already faces backlash for widespread misinformation and misleading advertisements on this platform. Now, Trump is faring badly with African American voters in 2020 with single-digit support. The cachet of data on almost 2 million American voters obtained by Channel 4 showed that African Americans were disproportionately included in the deterrence in 16 key battleground states. 16 key battleground states. And 16 key battleground states, some of which Trump by small margin. We know Trump won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by 10,704 votes. Okay, let's see if we could turn screen share on. Select window. Just a second here. I'm not sure how to. I got to figure this out. How to use their screen share. I'm not sure. Okay, let's continue. In Georgia, voters 30 of the population, 61% of deterrence category. In Georgia, voters make up 32% of the population, but accounted for 61% of the category. North Carolina, African American, 46% of 46% of the deterrents, even though they are 22% of the state's population. And in Wisconsin, where they constitute 5.4% of the population, African American voters constitute 5.4%, were labeled as deterrents. More than half of the voters in the deterrence category were people of color, the investigation found. October 2016, Trump's team placing spots on select African American radio stations aimed at depressing Hillary Clinton's vote total. The ads highlighted her 1996 comments about young black men being super predators, even though if you go and watch the broadcast that I did, the post-debate recap, president debate recap, I shared the fact checking on her 1996 comments dealing with super predator, the term super predator, even though I disagree with it. I didn't use the term. I don't even remember the term predator being used in 94. I don't remember. I was in college. When you actually read her actual comments in 6, she did not reference any race. She did not reference race at all. She used the term super predator. She then later apologized for it. Now, Trump hasn't apologized for taking out a ad in 4 New York daily newspapers calling for the death penalty to be brought back so the Central Park Five could be put to death. And then even when the DNA evidence came out and cleared them, he didn't apologize. He didn't change his tune. And then when They See Us, the series When They See Us came out, and then new information came out and was asked about their innocence. He said, well, the police said they were guilty, so he was going with that. He didn't apologize then, just so people understand. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so yeah, look at this one, politifact.com. It has her actual statements. Even though I disagree with the term super predator, she did not reference any race, just so people understand. Okay. So we'll post this link here also. All right. So the campaign also, okay, so campaign targeted. Okay, so that was Bloomberg.com. Then we look at, there's an article also from Huffington Post. Huffington Post had one. Trump's 2016 campaign targeted 3.5 million black people to deter them from voting. This is from September 28th, 2020. September 28th, 2020. We'll come back to that in just a minute. Let's go to, they talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Martin and Shireen Mitchell to about this targeting that took place. We're going to go to that clip here in just a minute. If we look at the reporting from Huffington Post, I'm going to skip over any things that are redundant. Analysis by Channel 4 News shows Black Americans were disproportionately marked deterrents by the 2016 campaign. African Americans made up just 13% of voters that were in the database, but 29% of the deterrence group. Okay, so they break down the numbers for
because
Georgia.
It disproportionately affected the poorest places. What nobody realized at the time was that by using...
Okay, let me back that up just so we'll come back to that in just a second here. In North Carolina, black people are 22% of the population, but 46% of the deterrence group. Okay, so then they break down Wisconsin as well. The U.S. election 4 years ago saw the first fall in or decline in black voter turnout in 2020. Trump taking narrow and unexpected victories in swing states, paving his way to the White House, despite losing the popular vote to Hillary Clinton. So as I have talked about this before, it's important for people to understand that 2016 was the first presidential election that you did not have the full power of the 1965 Voting Rights Act because Section 5 had been struck down dealing with pre-clearance. There were 868 fewer polling places in 2016. All this ties into the U.S. Supreme Court cases Shelby County versus Holder. 2013 was struck down the pre-clearance. So the 1965 Voting Rights Act, one of the stipulations was that states and territories that had a history of trying to disenfranchise African Americans, put obstacles in the way of us voting, poll taxes, literacy tests, things like this. Many of these southern states, many former Confederate states, if they wanted to make any changes to polling locations, times that polls are open, how many weeks you can have early voting, how many weekends you can have souls to the poll voting, things like this. If they want to make any changes, they had to get permission from a federal judge. Shelby County versus Holder 2013 U.S. Supreme Court case struck that down. Okay, so within about 24 hours of that Supreme Court ruling, you had all these states coming out with new voter ID laws. So in the 2016 presidential election, there were 14 new states that had new voter ID laws targeting voter suppression. And then you had 868 fewer polling places as well, fewer places to vote. Many of those polling places that were shut down were in areas that had higher African-American Hispanic populations. Today, there are about 1,700 fewer polling places, tying into Shelby County versus Holder. Okay, so the U.S. election in 2016 saw the first fall in black voter turnout. So there was a 7 percentage point decline in African-American voter turnout. It dropped from 66.6% in 2012 to 59.6% in 2016. Okay, all that wasn't because of Hillary Clinton. No, we were targeted with voter suppression from the Republicans and from Russia. There was a disinformation campaign coming from Russia. There was a disinformation campaign coming from Republicans. The Trump campaign spent 44 million pounds on Facebook ads during the 2016 campaign. They posted almost 6 million different versions of highly targeted messages, which were pumped directly into the feeds of targeted voters across America. But many of the ads were so-called dark posts. Once a campaign is said to have been debunked in Analytica, now defunct British political controversy over tabloid across hoot with the police. He tried to commit. Brad Parsons, six digital director, told PBS Frontline, quote, I would say 100% we did campaigns. He said, I would say I'm nearly 100% sure we did not run any campaigns that targeted even African Americans, end quote. But Channel 4 News says confidential documents reveal the campaign targeted a video featuring Hillary Clinton referring to young black people as, quote, super predators at, end quote, African American. They targeted this video to African American voters. Jamal Watkins, vice president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, said, quote, the thinking that's shocking / troubling about this is that there's this category of suppression that deterrence, quote unquote, deterrence part. So he's referring to the deterrence category. So we use data similar to voter file data, but it's to motivate, persuade, and encourage folks to participate. We don't use data to say who can we deter and keep at home. That just seems fundamentally, it's a shift from the notion of democracy. Okay. A Facebook spokesperson said, quote, since 2016, elections have changed and so has Facebook. What happened with Cambridge Analytica could not happen today. We'll see. Quote, we have 35,000 people working to ensure the integrity of our platform. They created a political ads library and have protected more than 200 elections worldwide. We also have rules prohibiting voter suppression and are running the largest voter information campaign in American history, end quote. This is a statement from Facebook's spokesperson. Now, the Trump campaign, the Republican National Committee, and the White House did not provide any comment to Channel 4 News prior to the broadcast. All right, so check out this article from HuffingtonPost.com. Trump's 2016 campaign targeted 3.5 million black people to deter them from voting. Let's go to this clip here from Roland Martin Unfiltered from September 29th, 2020, because Roland covered this story also. He has a clip from the reporting from Channel 4 News in the UK.
Because it disproportionately affected the poorest places. What nobody realized, because it disproportionately affected the poorest places. What nobody realized at the time was that by using the database, the Trump campaign could actually identify individuals on these streets who might be deterred from voting. Like other states, black voters in Wisconsin were disproportionately marked for deterrence. They made up just 5.4% of voters, but 17% of the deterrence group. More than a third of black voters in Wisconsin were classified as deterrents. Contrast that with the voters the Trump campaign thought he could win over. 75% of them were white, but less than 2% were black. We've come here because we've identified exactly how many people were marked for deterrence by the Trump campaign, and using the public voter roll, we've been able to match them and work out how many of them stayed at home. Take Ward 116. The Trump campaign was aware of 1,440 potential voters here. 80% were black. Almost half, 44% of the ward, was marked for deterrence. That's 636 people. So how many of those black deterrence voters actually turned out on election day? We went through the record. It was just 36%. Overall, the precinct fell from 75% in 2012.
Oh, let me. So it fell to 36%. Let me back this up here. So a lot of people don't know the type of vote suppression that was taking place in 2016.
636 people. So how many of those black deterrence voters actually turned out on election day? We went through the records. It was just 36%. Overall turnout in the precinct fell from 75% in 2012 to just 56% in 2016. And this wasn't restricted to one ward. Take these two back-to-back.
Digital voter suppression specialist Shireen Mitchell joins us right now. Shireen.
Hold on, this is buffering. Why is this doing this? Just a second here. Where are we? Let's try this again.
That's 636 people. So how many of those black deterrence voters actually turned out on election day? We went through the records. It was just 36%. Overall turnout in the precinct fell from 75% in 2012 to just 56% in 2016. And this wasn't restricted to one ward. Take these two back-to-back.
Digital voter suppression specialist Shireen Mitchell joins us right now. Shireen, this report shows how data is used to hyper-target people to keep them from voting, and how the Trump administration, when he was saying what the hell's, and then when he thanked black people for voting, was one of the reasons why right here.
Exactly. Again, we did this report, our report before the 2018 elections, but we have been tracking this in 2016. And let's be clear that not only were they targeting black voters, so was Russia. And so, and honestly, in 2020, we've seen even Democratic presidential candidates target black voters. The key is black voters. The data here that is very specific, where he actually went on the ground and actually looked at the types of places that were focused on black voters. So again, you and I, K in Michigan, right? Disinformation. Same.
Dumbass.
The key piece now that we've learned some more additional information is 70K of those people were Detroit alone. So when we talk about here are the black people who are impacted. Here's that was collected. Me that I let my community understand that or disinformation in general. What I always been saying is that we are the ultimate target, and if we don't understand, know how to combat that. And this report is, not only did the Trump campaign do this, but also Russia.
Well, first of all, those two were linked. And the great thing, what they did is, with this report, they literally went to those doors, knocked on those doors, and people were absolutely shocked to discover how they were targeted, kind of messaging they were targeted. And then that's also what happens in campaigns. Robocalls are targeted at certain houses, trying to get them to tell them elections a different day. So the targeting that took place to black people, specifically saying you could vote by text, you can vote by email, which are all lies.
Absolutely not only just lies, but that's literally digital vote suppression. So anything that tells you where you can vote when it's a lie, where you can show a part of digital vote suppression. And so they were specific.
by targeted with digital suppression and using Facebook to do this.
It's a lie. You can text your vote is a lie. All those things are a part of digital vote suppression. And so they were specific targets. And I just want to make sure that we're being clear on the language that they use. They're using deterrence, and we're talking about vote suppression, i.e., in addition, digital vote suppression. They had a campaign where they had 3 targeted groups. And those targeted groups included white women who were college-bound, white liberals to some extent, but the number one was also African American. And I've seen iterations of this, but that campaign actually talked about Project Alamo, and there's like videos out about what the team did. And so this isn't just about what Russia did. It was that Facebook participated. Why did Facebook participate? Because they had an embed in the Trump campaign, Project Alamo, alongside Cambridge. Again, Cambridge Analytica was checked and shut down by European and UK stance because that's where they came from. That does not change the stuff that they did in America, and we're still sort of getting our hands wrapped around that.
Yep.
While we were keep telling people that all of this was happening, not just Russia but also domestic.
Absolutely, Shereen Mitchell. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. You know, this is the stuff.
All right, so that is check out Roland Martin Unfiltered. That clip is campaign blacks from voting listed millions for deterrence, and it's still taking place right now because some of this stuff I see floating around on social media is just propaganda. One of them we talked about here. And how y'all, can y'all hear me? We talked about here dealing with Kamala Harris and this meme floating around said she 1,500 black men for marijuana charges, and they're picking up a talking point that we fact checked here from Tulsi Gabbard at a presidential candidate debate. But Tulsi Gabbard said 15 people. 1,500 people in jail for marijuana possession. But the meme floating around says 1,500 black men. Tulsi Gabbard did not mention race or gender. So how did 1,500 people become 1,500 black men? Okay. How did 1,500 people become 1,500 black men? And notice when they show you that meme, they don't cite any sources for it, because it's stuff they made up. But people don't think critically. They just recycle BS like this. Okay, so this is why this show, Roland Show, other shows like this are so important, because we go through and analyze this stuff. And then when I start asking people questions, they have to sit back and start thinking and say, oh, okay, this is nonsense. Because that's what a lot of this stuff is circulating around. That's why they don't cite any sources, because they don't have any. They just made it up. All right. How's everybody doing? Okay. And this is freezing up on me here. I got a bunch of tabs open because I do a lot of research. I have to upgrade. I need to get another laptop, more powerful laptop. All right. So I wanted to cover that story because that was on the rundown list, and I didn't have a chance to print this stuff out. It's been a hectic weekend. All right. If you like this type of information, also you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and then also through PayPal, /the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. So I wanted to make sure we all right. African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behaviors, not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.